Happy Tuesday and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDad.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
And I'm Billy Campbell. I was in the acting department on The Rocketeer. Yeah.
Oh, and we have to play... Wait, we forgot to play Billy's theme, so here we are. Just a moment.
You're listening to a special Billy Campbell episode on the Rocketeer Minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Campbell.
Welcome back, Billy, and as always, we appreciate you being on. And we're back with...
This acting department, is that an important department on a film? Would you say, is that sort of noticeable?
I would say it's one of the least important departments on the film, at least in terms of if you were to measure by hard work.
Wow,
ever humble.
We are in one of the least special effecty minutes of the show. We start with poor Cliff looking at half of a Lindbergh head. And right. He just looks like an Easter bunny about maybe 3 p.m. Just so he gets stood up, and I don't know what they're gonna do with that. Oh, I guess they're just gonna leave the statue parked next to Lucky's front door.
I think so. I remember that evening so clearly. It was quite cold. We're out in some potato fields somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but. Alan and I running around all night long in the potato field, and he found a cat. We found a kitten, which I think he kept, if I recall, or maybe gave to a crew member. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was cold. It was fun.
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple of days ago. While you and Alan were walking back and forth across the field there, that plowed field, and you had to basically keep pace with the camera and vice versa. So that how many times did you march across that field? I would imagine.
Well, we were back and forth several times, but the real trick was, and I think you can see it once or twice. It's not the best footing in the world. You're either stepping in a trench or you're stepping. One foot is on top of a little, berm of earth. So it was a little tricky. But yeah, I think we did okay. Nothing. I don't think either one of us fell down that I recall.
Yeah, the lighting was beautiful, and I mean that filming in the middle of the night is tricky, but the lighting was fantastic. I mean, it did really look like it was just lit by the headlights of the Model T. I'm sure there was a whole bank of
the
lights,
lighting was lovely. There was one tiny little special effect that I thought, when I saw the film later, I thought, the rocket goes up with Lindbergh and it disappears, and then Peavy and I are sort of bemoaning the fact, and in the deep background behind us, you see a pinprick of light as it's coming toward us. Well, the background's out of focus, but the pinprick of light is in focus. And I was like, that should have been out of focus at first, along with the background. But that is nitpicking. If
well, you came to the right place.
Nitpicking, that's right.
Yes.
If you were going to pick fleas, baby fleas, that would be an example.
Wow, yeah, it was. It didn't affect anybody. I was sitting in the 6th row and I didn't notice until just now. And now.
You guys never noticed that? You were the ultimate flea pickers of all time, and you never noticed that.
The ultimate flea pickers. Well, now we have team shirts, Jim. The ultimate flea pickers.
Yeah,
it's great. I remember we talked yesterday, right at the end of minute 21, how perfectly these sometimes these minutes break up. As right at the end yesterday, Billy, you got the line. I'm going to need a. And then, wow, what's he going to need? It's a cliffhanger. And then today, a helmet.
Yeah.
And as we step ever closer to that, that masterpiece of design, that helmet.
It's funny when you talked about doing the podcast. Did you argue with each other about, well, we could end it just after the line, or no, we have to ended precisely on a minute.
Yeah, I took the film and I put it through a piece of software that just chops it into 1 minute breaks, and wherever the 0 hit, that's where we went. So
That's it. Okay.
And I think it kind of points out Arthur Schmidt, the editor, probably cut this on the. He probably cut it. Okay, here's the first minute we're going to do this. And I have a feeling all the storyboards seem to land pretty close to where we're at. So
yeah.
But it's amazing how randomly these things kind of land.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're finished. We're finished in the bean field, and we go back to an interior of basically a dorm room where Helen Forrest is singing "Sweet Little Headache," which Helen Forrest at the time was a big time swing era singer. She sang with people like Benny Goodman and Artie James and wait, I'm saying that wrong.
Artie Shaw.
Artie Shaw.
Yeah.
Artie Shaw. Yeah, and basically she was the front woman for a lot of big bands. She was kind of the voice of the swing era. And
it's a Bing Crosby tune, right? From
yes.
What was the movie?
You're gonna have to go with that because I'm not sure.
She sang with Benny Goodman and Harry James.
Harry James.
Right, yeah.
That's what we're thinking of. Harry James, Artie Shaw, those types.
I'm a big fan of big band music.
Oh, same here.
Yeah, and it's we're going to be soaking in just a couple of minutes with some great songs. And actually, we're going to be talking with one of the live singers on this show. Melora Hardin will be coming and joining us in about half an hour's worth of shows. So we'll be talking with her again.
Oh,
and Jim, a quick shout out to our friends over at the Indiana Jones Minute, because this same song, a different version, I think it's Benny Goodman's version, appears in Last Crusade. Elsa Schneider is listening to it on a phonograph in Venice, of all wonderful places.
Small world.
So,
okay, there's the tie-in. So Billy, if you do get a request from the Indiana Jones Minute, that's what it's going to be couched as.
Right. Now, you were in another movie where there was another song that was playing in the same year.
Which we'll go there. We'll see what happens. But anyway, Helen Forrest is singing the rather ironically appropriate song "A Sweet Little Headache," and we are introduced to the girl in the picture, Jenny Blake.
Jenny Blake,
played by the wonderful Jennifer Connelly, and this is actually our first view of the character, not not stuck to a dashboard, and we're going to find, as Brian Fees was talking about was it episode 4, that this opening scene where she's putting on a stocking is kind of an homage, a nod to Betty Page, the original character that was going to be in the comic books is Clifford's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Here's our intro to Jennifer Connelly's character, Jenny Blake.
Oh,
and
you still my heart.
She's an amazing actress in this. And Billy, we don't go into your private life here, but we do know that you actually have been grocery shopping with Jennifer Connelly.
Yes.
Wow.
Is that a metaphor for something, or is that?
Well, no, it's just one of those. I just keep
because we used to grocery shop quite a bit.
Wow.
We got together on that film, and it was just one of the joys of my life. She was one of the joys of my life.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Did you first meet when you were doing the screen tests?
We did. Yes. Interestingly enough, when I was, we have to go way back to when I was in my hometown of Charlottesville, Virginia, about 7-8 years before Rocketeer, and I had an agreement with the local movie theater. I would come and paint on their windows. I would paint the posters for upcoming movies in tempera paint. I used to go to movies there so frequently that I became friendly with the management, and so I sort of proffered this deal whereby I would get free movies if I painted for upcoming attractions on their windows. And one of the films that came to that theater was Once Upon a Time in America, a great film directed by Sergio Leone, and it had an all-star cast. I think it was Pacino and maybe De Niro, it was James Woods and Elizabeth McGovern and a bunch of people. But then there was a whole cast, younger people that were playing all of them. These people when they were still in Italy and when they were just coming to New York. And the person playing the young Elizabeth McGovern was the young Jennifer Connelly. And I remember watching that film at that point in time. She might have been 12 or something. And I thought, she is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, this young girl who's dancing ballet. And I think Al Pacino's young character is hiding in a broom closet, spying on her through a peephole or something. And cut to 8 years later, 7 years later or something, and they call me in to screen test. I've got the part. They call me in. Joe calls me in to screen test with a few gals, one of which is Penelope Miller, Annabeth Gish, and Jennifer Connelly. And I didn't recognize her name, but I walked into the screen test, and there was the little girl from Once Upon a Time in America. And now, of course, she was 19 and absolutely stunning. And I just about fainted on the spot. And of course, it was very clear, I think, from the beginning that she was Joe's choice. But he came to me after I screen tested with all three of them, and they were all lovely. But he said, and so which one do you think was your favorite? And I said, Jennifer. And he's like, me too. So that was that.
Wow.
And,
Yeah. You had an amazing chemistry in this movie, and it was a great. It's this great a 30s screwball comedy kind of that affection, annoyance, and just really feeding off of each other in terms of getting the acting going in this script.
I think so. It was as I'm fond of saying, you'd have to be a fence post not to have chemistry with JC. She's a remarkable person, a remarkable woman. She's a great actress. She just was the part. She really was the part.
Yeah, she first really caught my attention in Labyrinth, which I think was probably a year or two after Once Upon a Time in America. And just had that same reaction, although I was going back through my journals. I've never been grocery shopping with Jennifer Connelly. We've never once. I don't think we've even ever been in the same grocery store. I guess I can't prove that.
Well, I mean, maybe you had the same experience I did. I felt like a bit of a perv when I saw her in Once Upon a Time in America, because I mean, it wasn't it wasn't really pervy, but I just thought she is just a flat out beautiful, beautiful human being, and.
For me, in Labyrinth, it was I reconcile this, or I keep telling myself this. I tell my therapist this every week that it was okay because we're within a year or two of the same age. So I'm sort of a young teenager at the time that movie came out. So so it's so
I
that was all good.
I didn't have that rationale. I don't have that rationale.
But by the time you were at the grocery store, everybody's of an appropriate age.
That's true.
And we're all
true.
fine.
That's very true.
Yeah, you can ask those questions like, do you want these Fig Newtons, or do we already have them?
Yeah,
we're desperately trying not to make grocery shopping a euphemism for something.
We should. We really should.
It's a family show about
let's
a family
let Ralph
film.
be where it is. Yeah, we'll just say, okay. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, and we can admire from the moment that she appears on the screen, we get. She's putting on a stock, and we see the bracelet that's going to take a little bit of plot work later on. Yep. And we cut over to her roommate, who is again frustrated that she doesn't have a flyboy waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs. But they're all, and she seems to be exceedingly happy that she's got a flyboy. And there you are in your jodhpurs again, out there climbing up the stairs and. Joe Johnson is saying, "Now wave at the camera." Where was that exterior film? Do you remember whereabouts?
I cannot remember, but no, actually, I think that was a set.
Really?
Yeah, I think that was a set, if I recall.
Wow.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Rather elaborate one, and I do like the matching in the script that you where you kiss your thumb, Jenny Blake kisses her finger,
right.
and leave lipstick on your nose.
I was just going to ask about that. It's a simple, minor thing about movie making, but how long in advance did you guys sit and have that portrait done before this scene was shot? I mean, obviously, at the time, long enough to get the film developed.
Oh man,
But
gosh,
was-
there's no way I can. I have no idea.
I just wonder about that sort of thing in general, though, because you obviously get to the scene and you have to have had that picture done already.
Typically, they do that. One of the first few days of production. I mean, it happens all the time. Of course, you need family photos and so forth. And often, what will happen if they don't have enough of a if it doesn't sort of logistically work out, that actors can be there at the beginning of production because maybe their part kicks in a bit later in production, then they need to Photoshop something.
Right.
And that can lead to, virtually laughable examples of family photos. I've seen family photos that were just really not very good.
Well, it's like the ones that Jim and I have been circulating of the three of us, of Hal, Jim, and Billy, best friends. Here we are at the beach. Here we are, we're catching a movie, having ice cream, all that kind of stuff.
When you were, I have some this spring on you. Back in 1990, you were talking to the Los Angeles Times while you were making this movie, and you had been worried about the fact that when this movie came out, you were going to no longer be anonymous. And I don't know if you remember this interview, but you were this is something that you said that at the time you had never been recognized in public before.
Yeah, I think I don't remember specifically saying that, but I do remember having the feeling.
And I was wondering, do you remember the first time you were recognized? It's like, oh my gosh, it's Bill Campbell from the Rocketeer. Do you remember that moment or?
You mean the first time I was ever recognized at all? For
just
the Rocketeer.
I mean, not even the Rocketeer, but I mean, I guess you'd worked on Dynasty and things like that.
Yeah, I think it must have been. It had to do with Dynasty, and I think it was because Dynasty. I think at the time I was on it was the #1 show on TV, and I was playing a gay character. I think it was one of the earliest openly gay characters in primetime TV in the States, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I lived, of course, up in Laurel Canyon. Not of course, but that's where I did live with my girlfriend at the time, and so was down in Hollywood quite a bit, which is pretty much Boys Town in Los Angeles. And so I think, as I recall, my first real bout of being recognized was sort of being on Santa Monica Boulevard and being recognized by some of the boys.
Oh. I just want to make sure I get that. Here's the quote. This is from it's the Los Angeles Times, and it's a pre-production of Rocketeer. Campbell, 32, who grew up near the town of Fort Union, Virginia, plays a stunt pilot who discovers a rocket pack that turns him into a superhero. The movie premieres on Friday. The only thing that bothers him about potential fame, he said, is losing his anonymity. Quote, "The more I think about it, the more it worries me," Campbell said. "I have yet to be recognized by anyone on the street, and I'm thankful for that."
Yeah, I still have a pretty impressive degree of anonymity. It's interesting. I think if you want it, for the most part, you have it, and if you don't want it, meaning you want to be famous and hunted down by the paparazzi, then you can pretty neatly arrange it these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've still been enabled to live your life without having to worry about, I got to plan how I'm going to get through this next day or two with all these people bumping into me. But it must be a frustrating thing.
You're just stalked by podcasters. That's all.
I don't consider being approached on Twitter being stalked. That's for sure.
It was a public forum.
I actually have made some very good friends on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter for all that many years, but I've made some pretty good friends on Twitter.
Well, I guess another place to meet famous people is to hang around at an apartment house with the symbols of comedy and drama on the front door. That's kind of a giveaway that
That's right.
actors live here.
I was wondering, Jim, have you ever been able to actually read the sign? I see the comedy tragedy faces there, but other than Home for Wayward Actresses or something.
I have tried to make it out. I think the first word of the bottom line is South, but I don't know what else it is. But there, yeah, and this was a kind of a common thing that there were rooming houses and boarding houses for the many. The it's a factory town, and there's got to be a place where you store the factory workers, and this was a common thing. Up and down, like Bill was saying, up and down, like from Santa Monica Boulevard, there down to Culver City and over into Hollywood. There were people stacked like cordwood, pretty much, to do all the MGM films, and holding bowls of grapes behind Myrna Loy. Somebody has to do that.
That's right. When I first moved to talking about wanting to be discovered and how many actors and actresses there were wanting that, when I first moved to Hollywood, Schwab's was still open. The famous diner at Sunset and Laurel Canyon, where you went to be discovered. I mean, I think there were a few quite famous people discovered there that would go and sit at the counter and have ice cream sundaes until somebody put them in a movie.
Or they were too large to fit in the costumes and they had to leave, I guess, from eating all the ice cream sundaes. But I mean, this was the way it went. And I guess, here's basically the two, Irma and Jenny are two people who have been in a lot of movies, but you'd have to be, you have to look at them with a VCR, which wouldn't be invented for another half century. So they're in the background and hoping to strike it big. So Jenny and Cliff both have different ambitions, and they're both ambitious people wanting to get ahead with their job. So Jenny here lives in the boarding house of Mrs. Pye, played by character actress Pat Crawford Brown, who is in a million things. And she runs Mrs. Pye's boarding house.
Yeah.
A great little scene that you have here with the back and forth and the 30s banter.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, you removed the Beemans out of your mouth before you get to the door.
That's right.
You pulled the gum
Or
up.
you're sticking it on the side of the door for good luck. It depends on how you read it.
Yes. Hopefully not just sticking it there for later. But
how's my luck tonight?
If we need to stop for groceries on the way home from the movie, is that? I'm sorry.
So you get, and you're actually in your B costume now. This is the second. We're going to be doing a running count of how many times people get to change. So you get the B costume here with the nice V-neck sweater, and you start out by kissing Jenny Blake, and then off you go after a few choice words to Mrs. Pye. It's now the two you've already looked at the screen tests that are going around, and hopefully we'll find some more screen tests from the movie. These hit me as some of the first scenes that you'd be trying out with different people. How do you remember getting all the sides for your screen tests, or did you just show up and read these lines? How did that work?
I don't remember that. I think the one thing, really the only thing I remember from the tests is walking in to my own screen test, walking into the stage and having cut my hair to look like the fellow in the comic book. I walked into the stage and Joe Johnston was right there by the craft service table, and he did a double take looking at me, and I thought, it was the first moment that I thought, I could get this. But other than that and screen testing with Jennifer, I really I'm fuzzy. I don't remember.
A wild blur.
Yeah. I do remember you guys sent me that link of the screen tests, and I do remember running around with John Corbett on the back lot, and we actually became friendly after that. We were in touch for several years after that.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know who was running the lines with you as Peavy? I didn't know. I couldn't figure out who the fellow was.
I cannot recollect.
And also in that screenplay we saw in the screen test we saw the alternate version, which is more of the comic book version of the original Rocketeer's backpack.
Yes, that's right.
Which was kind of flimsy, rather.
Yeah.
It's that's not going to get you anywhere, but I guess it's something to act off of.
I think it was a really nice redesign they did of the rocket pack. It was really terrific.
Yeah, was it heavy? Was it? I mean, do you remember?
It depends which model you're talking about. I mean, I had one just to run around with. I had one that spit fire, and one that was for bashing up. They were, even the running around one was still relatively heavy. You know, it's sort of I can't remember what it's made of, but resin cast kind of thing. So even that was relatively heavy. But I think I wore the flame one once, and I was surprised at how heavy that was.
I mean, did you have to wear like flame-proof clothing? I would imagine that your costume would change slightly when you're wearing the heavy stuff. Or with the flame-producing ones.
I don't remember that. I think, there were a lot of jokes about, well, what the heck happens to the back of his legs and his boots and stuff? It's just, when you think about it, he's going to return with, a couple of just charcoal
stumps,
sticks, But no, I don't think. I think I had the fire spitting pack on once. I don't think there was ever any reason for me to. It may be just that I had tried it on to see how much it weighed. I don't think I ever ran around with it or had to do anything with it.
Well, we're kind of at the ending point here where Cliff and Jenny are going to the movie, so we'll save the rest of talking about this walking and talking scene for tomorrow.
Terrific.
But it's fascinating seeing just this early part. It was I know most movies are shot out of sequence and things. Mm-hmm. Do you remember where in the shooing cycle this was?
I think it was relatively soon because I remember being self-conscious. I don't particularly like all of my line readings in this scene, and I think
really?
I think it was I was a little self-conscious and nervous because it might have been one of the first few days of shooting.
It's funny you say that because you've got that line, Mrs. Pye, no gentleman after 6 p.m. and then you just say, right, well, I'm no gentleman, and I love that. That's to me that's one of the most naturally funny moments in the film.
Yeah, and then, I like that too. I think I had a little, this I got to see. It was a little, I don't know. I was just nervous. When I get nervous, it doesn't happen much anymore. But when I get nervous in front of the camera, then it just feels like you're speaking with a mouthful of cherry tomatoes, and nothing feels natural. And I just I remember feeling that way.
Something I've wondered about during the film for the cast party, was there a gag reel? Do you remember seeing a gag reel from?
I think there was a gag reel.
Yeah.
I think there was a gag reel, but I haven't seen. Now that you mention it, I haven't seen anything like that in ages.
Yeah, that might be our holy grail, trying to find the gag reel from Rocketeer.
That would be fun to find.
So here's a quest for our listeners, please. If you know anybody that has that somewhere in the Disney archives, maybe somebody has something misplaced, and they just, if you've got a reel, we'll try to get it transferred to digital if you could. But please let us know.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hold here, and we'll pick up the rest of this tomorrow on another exciting Billy Campbell episode of The Rocketeer. So join us here. If you're listening to this on social media, as we know you are, you can reach out to us a couple of places. Of course, on Twitter, there's Rocketeer Minute. Over at Facebook, there's facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. You can also catch us at the big site, rocketeerminute.com, where you can catch up on previous episodes, leave messages, and get cool swag. You can even get like little Billy Campbell action figures, which are neat.
I've got one.
So they're all out there, and Amazon will be willing to sell them to you. So check those out. If you're not already subscribed, as you should be, go to either iTunes or Google Play. Look for the Rocketeer Minute and hit subscribe, and you'll have us every morning bright and early, so you can hear more things. And who knows, Billy might be on the next episode. Well, we know he's going to be on the next episode, but keep listening after that because he'll be on a lot more. So
I plan to stick around like a bad penny.
Isn't that cool? Gosh.
How lucky would we get?
Yeah, so anyway, let's find out how lucky it is. Join us here tomorrow on the Rocketeer Minute. So until then, over and out.
Over and out. Go get him, kid.